Today I'm driving this beautiful blue Ford Mustang Mach-E to find out how good is it to drive, how fast is it, and how does it stack up in a fun to drive score competition against all the other cars I've reviewed. How high will it rank on the fun to drive scoreboard? There's only one way to find out. Let's go.
So what is this? Well, it's a 2023 Ford Mustang Mach-E Premium all-wheel drive with the extended range battery. That extended range battery gets you a 91 kilowatt hour unit, which is good for allegedly around 280 miles of range, but we'll see today how far I go exactly. The only two options this car has at all is that giant battery, which is an extra $7,000 just in and of itself to get that extended range battery, and some paint. It's got a beautiful bluish gray vapor blue metallic, and in the shade it looks gray, in the sunlight it looks blue. While we sit here and charge up our battery, which we will soon use when we test how fast this car is, let's talk about the specs. So this is a Mustang Mach-E Premium all-wheel drive extended range, which means by my research, it's the highest power you can get in a Mustang Mach-E without having to step all the way up to the GT model. So that gives you a 91 kilowatt hour battery, an EPA estimated range of 290 miles, and 346 horsepower. Of course, because it's an EV, the torque figure is even greater at 428 foot-pounds. And when I drove it, I guessed before I looked this up how much power it had, and I thought it probably feels like around 350 horsepower. It's what it's got. So the feeling is true to the specs. The fact that it is an EV with an extended range battery means it pays a weight penalty. This car weighs 4,838 pounds. That's wild, 2.4 tons. So if we do the math and we figure out the power to weight ratio, that's 143 brake horsepower per ton. Now my general rule of thumb is a car doesn't feel fast until it's over 200 brake horsepower per ton, but it generally feels quick at around 150. So it's right there in that realm, and the instant torque makes it feel even faster than that. So why did Ford build this car? What is the point? What's the intended purpose? Well, despite EVs being fairly common now, they've been around for over 10 years in a lot of different forms and people are quite used to them, Ford didn't have a proper EV flagship on the market. It's had the Ford Focus EV for a while, it had different hybrids, but as far as an entrant into the mass market appeal of what an EV is, Ford was absent. And so they came out swinging as hard as they possibly could with a mid-size SUV crossover kind of style vehicle, which is the #1 selling style vehicle right now. And it's also branded as a Mustang. They're trying to lean into their brand loyalty and their brand recognition as much as humanly possible and give this thing a little bit of fun factor too that maybe some other EV SUVs don't have. So despite the nameplate of a Mustang, this really isn't about the same thing a Mustang is about. The Mustang ethos is about style, performance, GT cruising, straight line performance, but it's a pony car, so it's meant to be about the driving experience overall. The fact of the matter is that these early stage SUV EVs are not about the driving performance. They're all very similar when it comes to the driving performance because they're a silent, torquey, spacious, glass-filled egg. So this car's true intended purpose is to be an everything for everybody kind of car. It's got 5 seats, room in the back, ample ground clearance. It can kind of do everything that you need it to do in theory, and it needs to check all those boxes because from moms to presidents of companies to first drivers and everyone in between, right now everybody seems to want an SUV, especially electric SUVs. So it only makes sense that Ford chose for the Mustang Mach-E to be debuted in this way and not have it be a 2-door rear-wheel drive pony car like the real Mustang is. Now let's talk about the design and whether or not it reinforces the identity that it should have as a Mustang Mach-E. It's pretty obvious that Ford painstakingly designed this vehicle to look a lot more like a car and look a lot more muscular than the average electric SUV is. They wanted it to look more athletic, more animalistic, like a Mustang. So on the outside, it's got a swooping roofline that's even more swooping visually because the top little bit of the roof is painted black. It looks a little bit more athletic in the front end than most other EVs are. In the back end, they tried to emulate the Mustang 3-light taillights so that you could recognize, hey, that's a Ford product. That thing is kind of a Mustang.
I think overall the design of the Ford Mustang Mach-E is pretty attractive. Is it going to win any design awards or make anybody turn their head more than a sports car would? Definitely not. But in the world of commuter-grade electric SUVs, this thing is one of the best looking eggs out there.
So what is this car's natural testing habitat? As I drive up this twisty road going up to Snowbowl, which is a ski resort here in Flagstaff, Arizona, I'll be able to feel a lot more of what it feels like in the turns. We'll see how much communication we get through the steering. We'll see what the pedal response is like, and overall if the body motion is controlled or not so much. If you've watched my videos before, you know this is the same exact road where I finally got to test out a 2023 Toyota GR86 and see if it really lives up to its claim to be a true sports car. And on that day, there was a lot less traffic than there is here today, so I got to push it a bit more. The road is not well maintained. It's pretty rough. It's got a lot of bumps and cracks and potholes in it, so we'll be able to test actually the comfort of the suspension at the same time. Now let's start to discuss what this Mustang Mach-E is like to drive. Granted, this is not the performance version. There's a GT for that. So this is not supposed to be a sports car. But because it's an EV and it has instant torque, it's got a good amount of power, 350 almost horsepower, over 420 foot-pounds of torque. And because it's an EV and those batteries are kept so low in the floor of the car, it means that the center of gravity is relatively low based on the size of the vehicle. Right away, something you notice whenever you play with the 3 drive modes of the car is that the steering is also adjusted along with the power level. So if I have it in unbridled like I do now, I have the most power possible, I have the most touchy throttle, and I have the heaviest steering. That doesn't give you any more feel though. And in the steering department, it could use some more feel. I cannot tell what this road surface is like through the steering wheel, and in a really great sports car, you would be able to. It would be fingertip controls, and I'd be able to feel every crack, every undulation. I'd even probably be able to feel that this is rough asphalt, not smooth asphalt. I expect that from the very best sports cars. Do I necessarily expect that from a Mustang or an SUV electric Mustang? No, but it would be nice to have if it had a little bit more steering feel. Then if I put it back down into the most chill mode, whisper, then I get a lot lighter steering, which I actually like. If anything, I prefer the weight of this steering to the weight of unbridled, but I get even less feel if that's possible. Don't love that. Let's try the middle setting, which is called Engage. Nice blue lights on the screen, I like that. And as could be predicted, it's a middle weight steering. I don't have any option to adjust this outside of these preset parameters. So I can't say, like in something like a new BMW, oh, I want the powertrain to be in full attack mode, but I want the steering to be in comfort mode, and I want the throttle to be this way and the suspension to be that way. All of that stuff is automatically adjusted just by picking these 3 modes. We don't have any further control to dive down deep into. And for me, because I'm a car nerd, I would like that. But I also respect the fact that Ford has made this more approachable and a little easier, because you can kind of pick the vibe you're going for. Slow, normal, or fast. Whatever your vibe is, pick that, you're good. Here's a tight turn coming up. Let's save a little ground between us and the car in front of us so we can actually apply some throttle as we go. Steering is accurate. It's about as fast as I expect it to be. I don't think I want it to be any faster or slower, so the ratio is good. And the body motions are really well controlled. I think it helps that the car has a low center of gravity, and maybe Ford has tuned this to be a little bit more athletic and exciting than something like they would an Edge or an Explorer, because it does have that Mustang nameplate. Like every EV I've driven so far, it's confidence inspiring. You know, it feels like I turn in, I want the car to go here, it goes there. It's not a question of, is the body gonna roll, or the tires gonna slip, what's gonna happen? Now, when I was getting up to this road, I had to jump out and get going in traffic fairly quickly. And because this is an all-wheel drive model, the front tires were really struggling for grip as I accelerated from 0 and immediately was into a turn. And that's, again, something that I would expect from a vehicle like this. It's got a lot of torque right away. These aren't monster front tires. And unlike the performance model, the GT, this has just economy tires. It's Michelin primacy. They're a decent width, but these are meant to be hard, quiet, long-lasting economy tires with low rolling resistance. They're not meant to provide a lot of grip. Even this middle mode, Engage, from a low roll and you roll right into the throttle, I mean, it's quick. EVs are no joke when it comes to torque delivery. There's good visibility through this nice upright windshield, and if I absolutely need to, I can look out the side windows too and have plenty of visibility that way. I feel like in general, this car is a lot more athletic than your average SUV. Anybody's RAV4 or Ford Edge or anything else like that is not going to be able to change direction, accelerate, and basically be as responsive as this is. And so it does what you ask it to do. Now, is it something that you would take out on a Saturday morning, wake up early and go hit a canyon road or a twisty road like this just for the joy of driving? Probably not. I think if you just really love the fact that it's an EV, then maybe you could kind of get your jollies that way. But I don't think it provides a special enough driving experience to call it a driver's car. That could be totally different though with the GT model. So if I get a chance to review one of those, I will jump at it, because I think Ford has a lot of potential in this platform in general to make it exciting, to make it more playful, to give it more feel, because they can do that in other vehicles. There's better steering feel in electric power assisted systems in other vehicles. And so the opportunity is there, just a matter of if they choose to put it in the vehicle or not. Because it's an EV, the brake pedal performance is something that we frankly just don't test as much as in other vehicles, because when you have it set to one pedal driving, which is a simple toggle on and off in the center menu, it regenerates so well that you're very rarely touching the brake pedal. If I just begin to let off on the gas, I'm still applying the throttle. I slow down pretty generously. Now, if you wanted to slow down really hard, yeah, you could let off all the way and hit the brakes, in which case the brakes respond really well. I think they respond at least as well as I would expect a new car to do, maybe even a little bit better. But again, they're lacking a lot of feel. I don't want to get deep into the pedal up this mountain road in the middle of the day with other public cars out here. But I feel like if you were in a situation where you were driving really hard, you were getting deep into the pedal over and over, it wouldn't be providing you the kind of feedback that you would want in a sports car. We'll see how all of this is reflected whenever we give it a fun to drive score with my spreadsheet, but I think it's going to do fairly well, just definitely not great. This is not a sports car. Hey, there's a Mach-E GT right there in the same color as this one. Wow, we could be friends. Maybe we can trade keys. All right, now it's time to go and hike the tallest mountain in Arizona, Humphreys Peak, a little over 12,600 feet. So it's a big one. We're going way up there.
Made it to the top. Woo! Beautiful fall colors are popping.
All right, back from the hike, 10 miles up and down Humphreys Peak. Excuse the nudity and the excessive body hair. I'm taking inspiration from the grizzly bears we saw earlier today in Arizona. That was epic. I love that mountain. But now it looks like we've got a fairly clear road on the way down. So let's put this car into unbridle and see how she feels. 20-mile-an-hour corner. Of course, we're doing exactly the speed limit, not a bit over. And the throttle is really responsive in this mode. You know, mid-corner or exiting a corner, when you're just starting to breathe on the pedal again, it's really ripping to go. It's ready. Plus, you've got all that torque immediately. We're not waiting on an engine to rev or turbos to spool up or even a supercharger to start producing boost. This thing is happening right now. And we've caught the traffic. Shocker. This car, as tested, don't remember off the top of my head, is close to $60,000. $59,500. Ready, set, go. It's fun. They're making an attempt at it being fun. All right, as we turn out here onto the 180, let's do a proper pull. All right, ready, set, floored. Wow, it hooked right there. Totally hooked. Midway through the corner, no tire squeal, no understeer, just all-wheel drive power. Okay, let's talk about the biggest complaints I have with the Mach-E. What are the top 3 worst things about this car? Number 1, as a driver, lack of steering feel, pedal feel, in general, a sense of engagement with the car. It is pretty isolating. I know that's kind of a luxury feature to feel like you're not part of the road, but as somebody who loves driving, I want to be part of the road, sorry. Number 2, the general software system here in the screen tends to be, at best, a little laggy, and at worst, it just does kind of random stuff. Like, I've taken off and started driving, and it's just had a black screen for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and it's just trying to figure things out. Other times, it'll be switching between certain things, and it's kind of in no man's land. So the electronics don't seem to be totally rock solid, if that makes sense, which can be annoying for people if you want it to be the absolute snap happiest screen, this isn't it technically. And number 3, the fact that you could have range anxiety and charging anxiety due to the fact that the EV charging network for non-Teslas is not ready for prime time yet. The charging network needs to be fast, easy, simple, and reliable. Just like getting gas. You can teach a teenager how to get gas in about 5 minutes. It's the same everywhere you go. You pay with your card. It's very easy. The fact that we have to go through a rigmarole to charge a vehicle makes it a lot less appealing for people. I can't in good conscience recommend a car like this to people who are not willing to take on a new thing. You've got to be kind of an early adopter, a little bit open to technology, and willing to try a new thing to get an EV right now. Tesla makes that transition a lot more seamless, and the rest of the charging network needs to be infrastructured in such a way that it's also that seamless. Little cheeky freeway pull. Sorry, officer. Had to get on the freeway and match the speed. I mean, it's fun. A quick car is fun, period. All the time, no matter what. It's fun. All right, I've got the Draggy. Let's go test how fast this car accelerates. Car is in the fastest mode, unbridled. We've got propulsion sound on. I'm gonna left foot brake, right foot throttle a little bit here. Ready, set, go. 40, 50, 60. Woo! 0 to 60 in 5.9. That's not what's advertised, but we were going up a 3% slope. If we do a 1 foot rollout, which is what a lot of magazines do too, it's 5.6 seconds. Well, what happens if we do the test going downhill? Set, go. Felt faster. Oh, it feels better. Yes. 5.03, definitely better. Definitely faster if you're going downhill. Shocker, gravity helps cars go faster. Who knew? So I'm not getting quite the result that is advertised as far as acceleration in this car, but maybe it's not perfect circumstances. Maybe there's a trick to being able to launch it better than what I know. But still, between a 5 and a 5.5 second 0 to 60 time, it's not slow.
Now let's head back here into the studio to give it a fun to drive score. I'd say overall the Mustang lived up to my expectations. It didn't exceed them, but it also didn't fall short. This is about what I think an electric Ford SUV should be. But how well does it stack up to the other vehicles I've driven so far? Let's go find out. Now it's time to give the Ford Mustang Mach-E a fun to drive score. And the way we do that is put it in my spreadsheet. We assess the inputs, the experience of driving the vehicle, and then at the end, if it's good enough, we'll give it an extra bonus in terms of miles per mile, and then we'll rank it right here on the fun to drive board. So far, the leader is the 2023 GR86, even though it was an automatic. And then my F-150 is pretty far below that. I really should space these out because the GR86 got a 74 and my truck got a 40. Yikes. Realistically, it's way down there. So let's see how well the Ford Mustang Mach-E stacks up. First, the inputs. As you saw in the video, they're not the best, frankly. The steering feel only got a 3 out of 10. The shifter feel gets a 0 because there is no shifting. The pedal feel gets a 3 out of 10. Suspension, a 6 out of 10. It's pretty decent. Responsiveness, though, gets a 15 out of 20, which is pretty darn high for an SUV, but it's an EV. And so that means that whenever you need it to respond, it does it. In terms of outright speed, it's pretty fast, but it's not really anything to write home about. So it only gets a 13 out of 20 there. And then for a metric that's near and dear to my heart, integrity to what's promised. The Ford Mustang Mach-E gets a 16 out of 20 because I think it does a pretty darn good job of living up to the claim of what it should be. Is it a proper Mustang in terms of the pony car Mustang, the fun to drive pseudo sports car? Not really, but this is a new product. It's different than that. It's not a Mustang. Thus far, the total points it could have gotten for inputs is 100, but it's only gotten 56, so it's off to a little bit of a rocky start. Now let's talk about the experience of what it's like to operate and live with this car. For interior quality, it gets a 7 out of 10, really not bad. For exterior looks, it gets a 6 out of 10. I think an SUV can only look so good. The best scores are reserved for those awesome sports cars or really unique kind of things. It's never going to score well if it's an SUV. For comfort, it gets an 8 out of 10. It's silent. It is comfortable. It has a lot of great features that make you feel all warm and cozy inside like you could drive it for forever. For tech, it gets a 9 out of 10. You can monitor all kinds of things on your app. You can do all this stuff on that giant screen. And so it's a very nice high-tech experience. And the first and only perfect score, full marks that the Ford Mustang Mach-E gets is for shareability. There's enough space in the thing for 5 people pretty easily, and it's kind of fun to share. So in that right, there's no way it could be more shareable than it already is. And the last category under experience is the value for money score. This is another really important one, and I only gave it a 14 out of 20 because the car is kind of expensive. I mean, it's a lot of car for the money. It's fast, it's comfortable, it has a lot of tech, it's doing a lot of things, but it's also still a lot of money. The total section here for experience could have a maximum of 70 points, but the Ford Mustang Mach-E scored 54. So right now that gives us a total score of 64.7, but we have to decide if it gets any bonus points for miles per mile. This is a pretty big wild card because you can get up to 10 extra bonus points if it just is something that makes you smile. If you want to get in it and have fun with it, then you can get a lot of points here. I give it a 1 extra bonus point for that because it's more than nothing. It's not soulless, but it's really not engaging me and making me want to go out on a Sunday morning just for a drive, just for the heck of it. I think it's one of those cars that you get used to and just treat like an appliance after a while. You're not that passionate about it, but it's still more fun than a lot of other things out there. So that brings up its total score to 65.7. So that means that it belongs right under the GR86, almost 10 points behind the GR86, which was an automatic, but I think that's a pretty respectable gap between the two. The Mustang did pretty darn good for an EV. The GR86 did fairly bad for a sports car. I also wanted to thank Sanderson Ford for making this video possible because they loaned me this Ford Mustang Mach-E for a couple of days. They're really generous to part with the vehicle for long enough for me to get all this footage together and make a proper review. And just full disclosure here, no money exchanged hands between us. I just needed a Mustang to review, and in return, the dealership gets a little shout out from me. I get to mention them by name. Plus, I sent them some pretty sweet pictures that I took during my road trip. Just a little added thank you on top for them. I'll show you some of those pictures now. The backstory is that over a decade ago, I used to work for Sanderson Ford, and I learned a lot there. Nowadays, I just come back every now and then to drool over the new cars or old cars and say hi to the people I know who still work there. And also, that's where I'm buying my new Ford Maverick. I ordered that truck new with my custom configuration directly from Ford, and it's super cool because there's no added cost to do that. You can just like spec whatever you want in a vehicle and order it from them. My new truck should be here literally any day now, and so I'll be back there at the dealership really soon to collect it. I'll make a video all about that collection process so you can see what it looks like when the truck first comes off the other truck, when my truck comes off the shipping truck. And in the meantime, if you want to see what my truck's custom spec is and how much that costs, check out this video next. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, please subscribe. I want you to have the videos that you want, and to do that, you've got to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.